Infrastructure is crumbling and the problems are only getting worse. The pressure to find solutions is hot. Let's talk about why American cities have no water, no electricity, and no money to fix their infrastructure problems. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast, hosted by Chad Smeltzer.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me on episode number 5, where we talk to Will Lake, who is the Vice President of Sales at the Aegion Corporation, formerly in Situ Technologies. Will has over 9 years of engineering and construction management experience. We talk about infrastructure funding gap. We talk about the difference from book smart engineering and real world out in the field experience you get in construction. I hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you for joining me. Hi, everyone. My name is Chad Smeltzer, and I am the CEO and founder of BigCurement.com. Today, we're on the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. I have with me a guest, Will Lake, who's with In Situ Technologies, joining us to talk about his world out there with cured place lining, and he's going to give us the introduction as far as what In Situ Technologies is currently doing. Thanks for joining us, Will.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Give us a little introduction, a little background of yourself, where you started, where'd you go to school, that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in construction for 12 years, most of that in operations, and now in a role as the Vice President of Sales for In Situ. I'm a civil engineer from Ohio State, and I've worked in several different parts of the industry, started in energy construction, and then also moved to the municipal space, and then back to some specialized demolition, and now back in In Situ in the municipal space again. So seen a little bit of different aspects of the industry, and I certainly enjoyed all my stops along the way.
Nice. That's amazing history you got going on there. So you went to school with engineering. You got an engineering background, correct?
That's
and
right.
Then you decided to get away from engineering and go right into construction. Can you explain a little bit more of why you decided to get out of engineering?
Yeah, sure. So I always have been around construction. My family was a contractor. I've been around it, since I was 5 or 6 years old. So always something I was interested in. Engineering was certainly the technical side of things that I was interested in, and frankly, anyone that even if you say you know what you want to do when you go to college, you really have to get your hands in it before you really know for sure. And so as I got towards the end of college and was just talking with future employers, I just didn't like the idea of sitting behind a desk, all day, every day, and without really laying hands on real work that's being done. And so I had some really unique internship experiences that kind of made me fall in love with the in the field and dirt on boots kind of action. And so it was a natural fit out of college, and so far so good. It's I've enjoyed my time in the industry.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's awesome. So a lot of what I've seen in the past as far as construction goes and engineering, there's always two sides of the opinion of how to actually build something, book versus out in the real world in the field. So what have you seen the difference between obviously field construction versus like what you read and learn in books in your engineering background? What are some of the struggles there right now that's currently going on?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I think that things can certainly be built on paper much differently than they can be built in the field. And so both of those are difficult jobs. And I have a lot of good friends that certainly are design engineers, and they live in that space, and I live in this one. So both are challenging. I think that the experiences that I've had that have been the best on jobs that have worked out well, or designs that have played out, or when they're put together with not just the concept of how those things need to operate long term, but how they're going to be built and how they're going to be maintained. And so, for example, a mechanical piece could work perfectly, but how are you going to get in to access it to repair it 10 years from now when it needs new bearings or it needs a new motor? So I think that
Right.
the more those concepts can be worked into design, the better off it plays. In my experience, the engineers that do the best job of that are the ones that get out from behind the desk and get out and actually see it in action and talk to the guys that actually get their hands dirty every day working on it.
Yeah.
That combination of skills and experience usually gets you to the best outcome.
Do you think that during your education to get your engineering degree, do you think it would be worth it that they put that curriculum in there so they should have engineering, people that want to get into engineering go out actually and spend a year or two out in the field? Do you think that's something they should put in the curriculum?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, I think at Ohio State, I felt like I got a really good education, and they certainly pushed the internship and co-ops through the
Okay.
summers. And I learned as much, if not more, in those 3 or 4 summers than I did in the classroom, just because you can only take the technical knowledge so far, and you eventually have to go out and see how it actually plays in the real world. So I think that that's a good step. There's definitely discussion in the construction industry on does a 4-year degree get you ahead of where a 4-year apprenticeship program gets you? And I think those are interesting debates. I think every person's kind of got their own lane to fill in, but
Yeah.
certainly for me, the technical background and then the hands-on experience was what kind of worked for my personality and kind of how my brain works. I'm sure it's different for others, but certainly I would highly encourage everyone to at least see both sides of it. And then you may hate one side, but at least you've seen it and you have some appreciation for the work that goes into it.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. Just having that extra background that you have makes a big difference when you get out there and helping these construction guys who are kind of going in and pivoted into skilled labor right now is a huge problem. So having you as a resource going out in the field and being able to educate some of these new guys, I imagine you guys are hiring left and right, and you have to train up
Sure.
these guys. Is that currently what's going on out in the industry?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our company, our industry is in the same boat as the majority of construction right now, which is that, there's just not enough skilled talent. There's a lot of experience that's retiring or close to the end of their career. And so that's difficult to kind of transport that knowledge into new people. In
Yeah.
general, there's a lot of companies that are bringing some light to it now, but the industry has done, frankly, a pretty poor job for a decade or more of really not training people enough and trying to get by with the bare minimum. And so,
Yeah.
that bears out in results. But I think that the companies that stay at the top probably do the best job of training people and really the companies that continue to keep that talent pipeline open, whether they're full or need work or not, right? We always kind of preach the overstaffing model, which has been really difficult lately. But hiring more than you need, you can keep people trained, you have a bench. Those are important concepts, and they're certainly difficult. When the financial times are more difficult, it's hard to make those investments. But I think that we'll see more of that. Hopefully, the industry improves as a whole.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So how are you guys recruiting? Like, how are you getting people to come on board with In Situ Form?
Yeah, good question. So we use several outside services. I mean, it's really an all hands on deck approach, right? So I mean, it's a lot of recruiting services. We have in-house recruiters as well. But really, I mean, and I think this is consistent across the industry, but referrals are our best way to get good people. It's family members, it's friends, and certainly for that to work, the company's got to take care of your people, right? If you want people to be recommended and referred in, you've got to be treating those existing employees well. And so, I think that certainly I wouldn't be here if I didn't feel like they take care of their employees. But I think that in general, every company can always do more. And so I think that we'll continue to see that. And certainly the last couple of years have really changed people's approach to what they want in a career. And so one aspect of our business is travel, and crews are out on the road and they're in hotels. I think that's certainly less appealing now than it was maybe just 2 or 3 years ago. And so there's just different things to kind of bridge and make sure you find the right person. That you're being honest about what the job's going to entail, how they're going to be compensated, and then hopefully you find somebody that it fits.
Right.
And we do a good job. Again, several other companies do this as well. But we have a step up program. So for me, I've always wanted to see where that next step in my career would be, and whether you come in as a laborer or you come in as an engineer, or really any position in between. I think it's important you always give somebody that roadmap, that ladder to, if you want to step up in your career, here's what you need to do, and this is the position and what it looks like. So, a lot of communication on that front, and
Yeah.
but no secret sauce. It's hard to find good people. It always has been, and it's definitely difficult right now.
Yeah. Do you think it's because obviously the retirement is intellectual knowledge and everything? People are retiring, but do you think we just laxed on vocational tech schools, things like that we really didn't educate in you know carpentry anymore? When I was in school, we had industrial arts and things like that. All that seems to be gone now. Is that where you think? how do we fix that problem, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been a gap. I mean, I think a lot of this is perceptions, and it's certainly not a unique idea for me. But I mean, I think that college is, we've shamed people into going to college when a number of people just it's not a great path for them, um, and just education really the options outside of what a college path looks like. So I mean, again, in my first couple years out of school, I worked with some fantastic tradesmen. I worked up in Alberta, Canada for a year in oil sands and dealing with really, really skilled tradesmen. Some of the
Yeah.
best pipe fitters all over the world and best welders and guys that knew that was there because that's a huge industry in Alberta. And so they knew that, hey, I knew as soon as I graduated high school, I was going to go into this trade school. I apprenticed here, and now I'm making 300 grand a year. And so you're like, oh, that's a thing, right? Like, I don't think in America that we talk about that enough, that you can make really, really good money and really do a really fulfilling job working in construction. And so hopefully some of the stigma to that, kind of declines over the next couple of years. But there's some really, really smart, skilled, you know, just craftsmen that are out in construction that are great to work with. And so it's a good industry, but a lot of education needs to happen so that people are aware of it.
Right. Yeah. With all these apprenticeship programs and stuff that are out there, it's a good way to start getting your feet wet in the industry. And, like you said, infrastructure is a great paying place to be if you're looking to
Sure.
just, move your life up and, want to, get more things, buy more things, stuff like that. You want to advance your careers. So that being said, since you said that you were in the oil and gas industry, now you're in the underground infrastructure, underground trenchless infrastructure, really. What's some of the differences between oil and
Yeah.
gas and infrastructure underground?
Yeah. It's a good question. So, I mean, energy as a whole, when it's good, it's fantastic, and when it's bad, it's really terrible. And so my timing was interesting. I came out and joined the kind of the energy construction role not long after the Horizon oil rig disaster in the Gulf. So permits were pulled in the U.S., hence why I worked in Canada for a year and bounced around. So I lived in 6 states, 2 countries, and had 7 different job titles in my first 2 years out of college.
Wow.
Um, so I mean, that's nuts, right?
Just
Got
a
a ton
little
of
bit.
experience right out the gate. But there's certainly a life, that you give up a portion of your life. And we worked 18 days straight and 3 days off, and you've lived in man camps in North Dakota and some things that just really aren't, I wouldn't put them on a postcard. But
Right.
really cool experience. And then moved to municipal just to really get something that was a little more stable for me personally. Um, and there's a lot of big differences in those. But one thing about infrastructure specifically, and then I'll come up, non-energy infrastructure, is that it's really steady and stable. So the federal money, the state money, the county money is extremely consistent. It's always grows year over year, slightly. There's hardly any big peaks and valleys. And so you
Yeah.
can really plan around, not only your business, but around, your career and understanding, where the work is going to be. Um, I had never heard of cured in place pipe or trenchless construction before I started working here. And so again, it's something that we talk about inside the company all the time and inside the industry, that you just got to educate people on the options out there.
Right.
I've loved my time at this company and in the industry, and something that frankly I just lucked into. And so I think that social media allows us to kind of get the word out on a lot of things, and so that's a great place to kind of elevate the cool stuff we do and the great people we work with, and let people know that it's a good option for their career.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. Talking about infrastructure, kind of staying on that topic, with the report that comes out from ACE, American Society of Civil Engineering, what gave us a C- rating. I think the previous 4 years it was a D rating. So, what is your perspective on the infrastructure now, especially obviously in underground, pipes, sewer pipes to be more specific? What is your take on the industry now? Because there's 800,000 miles of estimated, sanitary sewer pipes, I believe. So in general, storm pipes are going to be close to that. So we're almost dealing with 2 million feet or miles, I should say, of pipe.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on the estimates and the grading from the civil engineers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's real. There was a really nice special done, I think, by the History Channel maybe 5 or 6 years ago called the Crumbling of America, and it went through kind of the infrastructure of different blocks, and it's a really sad story, frankly, and there's a lot of work to be done. And so I think one of the struggles that utilities and specifically, we talk about sanitary sewer, water, storm pipes, anything that people don't see every day, it's hard to get them excited about it. Um, Politicians, it's not sexy to fix a sewer pipe. You're not going to get a lot of street cred from that from your voting base. So I
Right.
think that we always, from a visibility standpoint, a big bridge, a new highway, those are things that people want to put their name on. But there's a lot of things in our infrastructure that just allow us to be a first world country. So water, sewer, electricity, those are all basic needs that are largely, I don't want to say ignored, but certainly not on the top of everyone's mind. And so that's a struggle to get funding. But I think that, Frank, when we see disasters and we see issues, it's always a kind of a reactive spend. So, the recent industry topic is Jackson, Mississippi, where they're not going to be able to provide water for their community. And
Right.
frankly, it was an honest admission from some of their local leadership that they've just been kicking the can down the road and hadn't been doing the maintenance they needed to. So that's
Yeah.
not going to be a unique story. Unfortunately, we're going to hear a lot more of that. And so from us, we have good solutions, and certainly we know that we can improve. We've lined over 25,000 miles of pipe in our company history, but there's a lot more to do. To your
Wow.
point, so from us, there's a huge need, but really from a constituent and really local leadership standpoint, there's just got to be the volume and the heat kind of turned up to get this stuff fixed before it becomes really catastrophic in some places.
Yeah. No, you're spot on, man. There's a huge gap, in this whole infrastructure world. We're out of sight, out of mind, like you said, and we need to just have more information about the infrastructure. And one thing that's surprising to me is that on some of that reporting from the civil engineers, basically they estimate everything. They're estimating every 4 years the infrastructure channels, so to speak, of all the different types of infrastructure. And the fact that we're estimating is amazing to me still in 2022. That's how archaic. So maybe this pivots us right into like infrastructure procurement, because we're estimating a lot of the infrastructure that's out there. And what is your perspective on like the engineering estimates? Every 4 years we're evaluating it, but we're estimating it. And the procurement cycle, like what's going on there? What's your take on some of that stuff?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, on the procurement side, I mean, I should step back. So technology's come a huge way in construction in the last, 5, 10 years. The majority of my clients, the majority of municipal clients, government clients, have a system that they've used and they're going to continue to use it, even if they openly admit that there's something better out there. And so that's a real struggle. Change is hard. Change is really hard inside of bureaucratic groups. And so that's an overall, I think, struggle that we all have. Um, from the procurement side and just the processes, I've talked to several clients recently where, you talk about their current system and what it can handle and how much money they can push through and how many jobs they can manage at a time, and then what needs to be done. And then the gap between those. And in some cases, just like, hey, you just need more people or you need more money to do these things. In some cases, it's that, hey, your system doesn't work. You're gonna have to reinvent your procurement system, the way that you let out contracts, the way that you qualify contractors. And so there's really the full spectrum across the country. Some clients have done a really good job in staying kind of up to date and looking further than just this year, but looking 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not the case everywhere. And so, as you know, it's a mixed bag. We work with clients,
Yeah.
5,000 person towns all the way up to the largest cities in the country, and it's just a mixed bag of what you see in all those places. The common theme, though, is that really no area from our perspective is overspending on infrastructure. Most people are doing either what is required or the bare minimum, and many are actually not even doing that. So this can only last so long. This stuff catches up with you at some point.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Uh,
we interact before that happens.
Yeah, it's a huge gap, the infrastructure gap. I was just looking at it before we started our podcast, and it's trillions, $2.59 trillion gap over the next. They said by 2039, I believe, in that report that we have it would affect $10 trillion on our GDP. That just a gap alone, as we keep not addressing it and just keep it as is. So we're heading down a really interesting path. As the Jackson, Mississippi, you brought up that, this is time bombs just waiting around. Flint, Michigan was another time bomb just waiting.
Sure.
All these things are just time bombs, and that goes back to, you. What do you think about the state of contractors right now? And you mentioned accountability in your conversation there. What did you mean by that? Like, what's going on right now with contractors? Because I had some very interesting experiences when I was doing rehabilitation with manholes and stuff, where there were some shady contractors out there. What do you think about the contractors in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's certainly a group that that probably don't represent our industry as well as I would like. I think that in general, contractors have kind of a bad rap, and I'm obviously biased because I've been one my whole career and grew up in a family of contractors, and so I've always had a different viewpoint. But I think that people are shocked to understand the level of risk they take on, and just we talk about estimating. So every day we estimate what something's going to cost 2 years from now to build, and hope that we can build it for that price when it actually comes around. So that's day-to-day life for us. But I think, to your point, I think what we'll see is that in the municipal space specifically, they've been a low bid contractor awarder for a long time, and so regardless of who your company is, how long it's been around, what your qualifications are, if you have the low price, you're going to get the contract. We're starting to see some companies in the space kind of pivot from that and move to what I would consider a best value model, where you're going to qualify contractors, before you're going to open their price, so you make sure they have a level of competency before they're awarded the work. That's certainly something that we encourage, and I think that it's beneficial for the clients. It's
Yeah.
going back to my energy case. We saw that a lot in energy. So when I worked for Exxon and on Shell projects and Hess, they were interested. Price was pretty far down the list, actually, right? There were a lot of things that they wanted the box checked before they actually started talking about numbers.
Right.
And safety and quality and experience were really at the top of those lists. And so that hasn't really filtered into the public space as much as I would like. But I think, again, it's a matter of time, and we're starting to see some small progress there. But really, if you give qualified contractors, if you pay them for their experience, frankly, then the end result is much more favorable than unfortunately some of those bad actors that come in with a low price and then maybe try to take advantage of a client after the fact. But I would hope that's not as prevalent as maybe some people think it is.
Yeah. No, it's a good point, because what I've learned is that the contractors get the low bid, and now we deter some of our business development reps from going after certain government buyers, or wanting to work with them, because all it is low bid for them, not quality of service or quality of workmanship. And that's where we see a huge problem. The government buyers, I don't think, really realize is that when you take low bid like that, you just discourage really good companies from wanting to even work with you. And that's a big problem. I think it is in the industry worldwide, or just in the United States. It's a huge issue where the procurement system is really just archaic, very fragmented. If you're going to take low bid, you're going to get the lowest workmanship. I mean, in my mind, that's the way I kind of look at it. You're going to get what you pay for, so to speak. You mentioned something
Yeah.
about. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, so I think that they get what you pay for is a real thing. And yeah, I think that clients would be certainly, they would benefit from structuring that differently and getting qualified contractors. That's our opinion as well. And that's one of the joys of working for a company that's been around for 50 years is that, as a lot of companies are 2 or 3 year companies, and that 10-year warranty may not scare them, or something else may not scare them. But when you've got a name and a reputation to protect, I mean, I think that companies take a different approach, but the system doesn't necessarily award you for that type of behavior, right? I mean, it's still the low bid wins, and so you have to kind of work around it.
Right. Yeah. The fact that we have to work around it is a problem. You know what I mean? We shouldn't have to. It should be
Right.
based on your skill set, like you said, and are you a responsible bidder or not? You know, that kind of stuff. Let's talk about, we got like 6 minutes left. Let's talk about safety in the industry. Underground trenchless is notorious for, fixing large diameter sewers. And we, over the past 5 years that I can remember, we had at least one person die here in the Chicago area by putting in a liner. What's your perspective on safety in the industry right now? And are we really, is there a lot of contractors out there that don't make safety a priority?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. I mean, I think that again, when you talk about kind of the atmosphere that's created, municipal contracts don't always have the highest visibility. Where if you're building, a large casino or a plant, you're going to have OSHA reps on site every day, and probably a large safety team. Municipal works, you're kind of jumping around, and so it can be kind of hard to have visibility to what's going on. And so, yeah, I think we've seen a fatality in our industry, or at least related to manhole entry, um, about every year, which is shocking. And so, certainly, we have processes that we try to ensure, and we do have one of the best safety records in the industry. But as you would agree, it's just bad business to hurt people, right? I mean, there's no benefit to that. And so,
Right.
what I think we've seen though is maybe some lag between both clients and overall standards to kind of keep setting that bar higher and higher. And so I know that we've worked directly with OSHA to help, kind of recreate some standards that were just outdated, but again, out of sight, out of mind. And it's not the big project that's drawn a ton of eyes. And so I think it allows for people to be a little more lax. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, obviously there's people that, that do things in a way that we don't agree with, but I think it speaks again to the business and just what your priorities are.
Yeah.
So I think that overall, like when we talk about manhole entry and we talk about confined space, people just don't realize how dangerous it is, and so entering large pipes without a way to get someone out. I mean, there's lots of gases that, like a lot of bad things can happen, and so it's just again, there's an education piece, and I think if clients really understood kind of that full impact of what could go wrong, then I think they would take it more seriously than they do.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's true. It's still dangerous, like you said. Confined space entry is a big deal. Going underground like that, and it's very dangerous. Let's talk about inflation. We got like 3 minutes left. How's inflation impacted your business in general right now, and the infrastructure bill? So you're dealing with inflation, and you got all this funding coming
Yeah.
in to fix pipe. How are you guys handling all that?
Yeah, a lot of different components. So, I mean, the infrastructure bill, we're still interested to see what the impact that is, and there's always a timing component to see when that money actually starts hitting the clients, and they start planning in advance for that. But we're hopeful that's a step in the right direction. ARPA funds as well. The Recovery Act also gave some smaller towns that were impacted some extra money that could be spent for infrastructure as well. So we've seen some people come up with money that maybe they historically don't have to do jobs, which is great. Um, and then inflation has been a big piece. So at least in the procurement system, as typically we may work with clients a couple of years in advance to help them plan their project, and then they're going to go get a budget approved for that. And then maybe a year and a half, at least 1 year, but usually, sometimes several, the job's actually bid. The last 2 years have been very rough. So a lot of projects have had low engineer estimates, which means low budget, which means that they can't award the full contract. And so we've worked with clients, certainly some places that have really been affected, but again, we're losing ground, right? If they can't award it because of their system, then that job goes back into the funnel, and yeah, they go get the money, but that's still work that's delayed and not getting done. So that's been an interesting impact. Certainly we're trying to work with our clients to help them understand how much our prices, how much our costs have gone up, and that's
Yeah.
kind of a mixed bag of reactions. But I think overall, most people understand, the unique times that we've gone through. And so hopefully that begins to level out. I think we all hope that starts to level out soon. But really, I think that
Yeah.
it's just an education piece. And again, the system only allows them to award what they have in their budget. And unfortunately, although inflation's at 10%, most of our clients' budgets have not increased 10%. And so they're just able to do less work for the current prices. And so again, we're not really heading in the right direction. All these people really need to do more work. And so it's just
Yeah.
another kind of headwind that the industry has to deal with.
So you haven't really seen much changed since the infrastructure bill was passed. That's what it sounds like. You haven't really seen a
Yeah,
huge
absolutely. I mean,
effect.
we expect, hopefully it's sooner, but we expect next year maybe to start seeing
Okay.
some money flow. But I mean, frankly, in my best guess is maybe a year from now it starts to kind of filter through. But what we are seeing is there's a lot of design activity happening now. So obviously that has to happen before we're going to have projects to build. And so I think that we're going to see it. And we saw something similar back in 2009, 2010 in the Recovery Act there. So I think that, we're certainly hope that it's a benefit, and we'll see how much of it trickles down to our sector.
Yeah. No, that's interesting to know. And I wanted to talk more about the estimated engineering estimates being completely off due to inflation, but we're pretty much out of time, Will. So we'll have to come back around and we'll chat another time because I feel like we can talk for another 30 minutes at least. So, Will, if there's any way to information, how to contact In Situ Form if they're looking to, fix their infrastructure, as well as your contact information, if you could share that with us, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our website, www.insituform.com, is a great place for company information. And then certainly anyone can look me up on LinkedIn, Will Lake, and hopefully you can find me. I'd love to connect and see what we can do to help solve their problems.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. Truly appreciate it. You brought a lot of wisdom to the podcast today, and I hope people benefit from it. So have a great one, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you for listening to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. We hope that this show brought you some insight on relevant topics within the infrastructure world. Please join us every 2 weeks on Tuesday for the next episode. If you're interested in being a guest on this podcast, please set up a 15-minute interview with your host at calendly.com/Chad Smeltzer.